Hi everybody, it's Grant from Dome Music Technologies here. I just wanted to make a quick video to introduce a new set of modules which I've created. The overall module bundle is called Golden Ears, and basically I wanted to generate a toolkit which let you mess about with digital audio. I have this module here which is the bit reducer, and that quantizes an input signal from anywhere between 1 bit and 24 bits. It has a processed output. It's a stereo module, so it has left and right inputs, and it has left and right processed outputs, unprocessed outputs, and difference outputs. And the difference is literally the arithmetic difference between the processed output and the unprocessed output. So it lets you hear the sort of quantization distortion that you get when you quantize a continuous signal. So this module here, the ABX tester, it's basically a stereo input switch. So you can choose to listen to input A, which is a stereo signal, and here I've got it set up to be the unprocessed signal coming out of the bit reducer. So this is effectively like a bypass switch, and when this switch has been pushed in, the blue LED comes on and the input A is fed to the output. I've also got input B connected up to the process signal, so that's a quantized signal, and you can just flick between them as you want. You can also mute it. I won't bother going into this section of it, but in short, it gives you the ability to run a double blind test by yourself, by it generating a random selection of input A or input B, and you have to identify it by pressing these test answer buttons, and it'll work out if you've got a statistically significant test result at the end of the day after running a few tests. But for the moment I'm just using it to select between signals A and B. I'm currently using the Waverley Instruments AF player, which allows you to play an audio file through Voltage Modular. I recorded a version of Arvo Part's Spiegel im Spiegel on Reason, and it's a 24-bit wave file. So I'll put it onto the unprocessed signal path and just let you hear what it sounds like. I've also got the output of the ABX tester going into Mini plugin host, which is currently switched to the SPAN Spectrum Analyzer plugin, which is free. Very much recommend that you check out SPAN if you don't already have it. So what we've got here is the left and right channel of this 24-bit stereo signal that's coming out of AF player. So you can see that the signal level drops off to about minus 144 decibels in the quietest sections, and it rises to about minus 24 dB up here, maybe peaking at about minus 12. So what I'll do is I'll start introducing quantization error. So reduce it from 24 bits down to 16 bits, which you'd expect from a CD. And as you can see, there's no difference at all in the unprocessed signal. But if I now switch to the processed signal, you can see that the noise floor has come up to about minus 120 decibels consistently. But if you were to switch between them, it's doubtful that you would hear any difference at all. So what I'll do is I'll bring the number of bits down so that it becomes more obvious and you can hear the quantization noise build up. So even at 14 bits quantization, I certainly can't hear any background noise, and it's currently about minus 112 thereabouts. But as you start to bring it up to 12 bits, you might start to hear some noise if you're particularly sensitive. And then as you reduce it further, it starts to become very obvious. So there's 9 bits, and the background noise is very, very audible by this point. And you probably heard there that as the input signal became low, you started hearing sort of tearing noises. And that's very audible quantization distortion. Now, one way to avoid that is to add dither noise into the bit reducer. So what happens there is that before the quantization process is performed, a certain level of white noise is introduced, and that alleviates some of the symptoms of quantization distortion. It adds noise, but paradoxically it gets rid of the unwanted effects, those sort of tearing effects that you were hearing there. So one of the modules which I've created is TPDF noise. That stands for triangular probability distribution function. And by default, the white noise output is in the triangular distribution shape, which means that you're more likely to get a voltage which is close to 0 volts than one which is at the extremes of plus or minus 5 volts. If you've got it on the rectangular probability distribution, then you're equally likely to get a voltage at minus 5 or 0 or plus 5 or anywhere in between. It's just a flat distribution of probabilities, whereas a triangular distribution, it does sound subtly different to white noise. What I'll do is I'll just output the rectangular distribution output here. And this is triangular distribution, so it's slightly reduced in level, or should I say perceptual level. It doesn't actually reduce the peak levels that are coming out of it, but the sound is slightly more muted. So what I'll do is I'll take the triangular white noise and I'll introduce it to the dither noise input here, and what you can see over here on the processed noise is that there's a constant noise floor at minus 72 decibels. But what happens when I play the piece again? Oops, wrong one. If I play it, so you have a constant level of background noise there, but the idea behind adding that noise is that it basically eradicates all of the unwanted quantization distortion features in the signal, so that when the source material gets close to the noise floor, you don't get that horrible ripping noise. It just becomes drowned out by the noise. So to hear it without the dither noise again. So you're still getting the same level of background noise, but when the source material goes low, then the sort of constant noise disappears and it's replaced with the unwanted distorted noise. So you've effectively got a trade-off between having a constant background noise but without the distortion effects, or having a background noise which does reduce with the source material but which makes the distortion effects much more prominent. And what happens is basically as you increase the bit depth to CD quality, 16 bits, effectively that constant background noise just becomes inaudible at the best of times. But you've effectively got 120 decibels of dynamic range there, and a noise floor at minus 120 dB. And basically I can't tell any difference between that signal and the straight through 24 bit signal. And what I'll do is I'll just pause that playback there, so you can see that the piano chord was decaying, but it was actually below the level whereby you could hear it. But what I'll do is I'll put this null tester module, which is also a sort of it's like an amplifier which increases gain in steps of 1 bit or 6 decibels. So what I'll do is I'll grab the output signals and I'll put it through the non-inverting input to the null tester, and I'll bump the gain up a few bits, and what I'll do is I'll start replaying again, and hopefully you should be hearing the tail end of that piano chord. So it's above the noise level, but you can hear the noise, and that's the original 24-bit signal. And that's 16-bit signal with the dithering noise. And you can still hear the piano chord decaying, even though the background noise is quite prominent. And if I was to take out the noise, you'd get horrible distortion. And the bit attenuator is effectively the opposite of the null tester, in that it will attenuate a signal in steps of 1 bit at a time, or -6 dBs. So what I'll do is I'll take the AF player module out, and I've got a sine wave oscillator here, which I'll put through the bit attenuator. And it's just playing a major scale melody. So what I'll do is I'll take that output and I'll reduce it in attenuation just now. So that's the unprocessed signal, and it's reduced by 12 bits. So I'll put the bit reducer down, it's at 16 bits. So basically what you've got is the noise floor of this will be at -120 dB, and the signal coming from the oscillator is around about -60 dB, maybe -70. So it doesn't give you much to play about with. So as it is, you can't even hear the signal at all. So what I'll do is I'll give it some boost. And if I put it to the process signal, you can see we've got the noise floor at -120, and the sine wave signal doesn't come that far above there. So if we want to listen to what that sounds like, so that's quite an interesting phenomenon. You can still hear the sine wave oscillator, even though it's in physical terms, it's actually below the level of the quantization error. So it's being quantized to 16 bits, but the actual input signal is minus 18 bits. So theoretically you shouldn't be able to hear it at all, but because you've got the dithering noise inserted into the signal, then that gives you this nice noise floor whereby you can have fractions of a bit still present in the output signal. And if I remove the noise from the dithering, you can hear that it just disappears when it isn't being supported by that dithering noise. So hopefully you found this interesting. Maybe gives you some insight into the basic operation of the Golden Ear modules. I haven't shown you how to use the ABX tester, but all of the modules are described in detail on the documentation page of the Dome Music Technologies website. So if you want to read the user manual, it's got lots of pointers into how to use all of the controls and how to perform double-blind testing using the ABX tester and so on. So hopefully you can find some use out of it. It's not really going to be much use in terms of creative synthesis, I don't think. Potentially the TPDF noise module could be interesting when combined with a sample and hold module. It will give you more sort of output voltages around about the 0 volts level, with fewer of the voltages being present at the extremes of plus or minus 5 volts. The blue noise output is a different spectrum. So if I take the standard blue noise output and I put that into the inputs over here, you can see that the noise level is at minus 24 dB, which is what you'd expect from white noise. So white noise is consistently at minus 24 dB. Triangular distribution white noise, slightly lower, but not much different. But the blue noise is much less powerful in the lower frequencies. So at 20 Hz, it's down at minus 96 dB. So you can see there's much more concentration in the upper frequencies. So that could be useful for generating things like cymbal sounds and so on. And there's also a Gaussian distribution of the blue noise, which is even more extreme. So again, it gives you a slight reduction in the output level, but it still has this sort of high pass profile on it. So that could be useful, but in general, I think these modules are more useful for just experimenting with digital noise and hearing for yourself what the effects of dithering and noise reduction are, and basically whether you can trust 16 bits of a CD format wave file to give you enough information for a final mixed track. Certainly I'm convinced. So I don't think there's a need to distribute material in 24 bits, sort of high definition audio. But in saying that, I mean, these days file sizes are not really a problem. But I found it interesting that just a basic CD quality signal can contain a lot more information than I thought it could. So yeah, all of the modules are free and should be available in one bundle very soon as Cherry Audio approves it, but the modules are available now to pick up for free of charge. So hope you found this interesting, and okay, I'll see you the next time. Bye for now.